the tight end room. How healthy is it? And how unhealthy was it last year? I mean, historically speaking, it seemed like, you lose Ben for the whole year. Tyler's banged up again. Gabe emerges. I mean, just how would you describe that whole journey and where it's at now?
Yeah, right now, currently, everybody's healthy. Everybody's going through spring ball, which is certainly a relief for me. It was probably as bad from a health standpoint as it's been since I've been here coaching the tight ends. And, credit to Sam Steenbuckner, who helps me coach those guys. He played here, did such a good job managing those guys on the field and finding ways to make our offense, flow and function and be able to still do the stuff and play the way that we wanted to play. It was really good to see Gabe step up. He played 1 million snaps for us last year, with special teams and everything he does. And he's one of those guys that gets better with the more you ask him to do, and probably would have asked him to do a little bit more if we didn't have some of the guys that we had playing when we had playing. So thinking that room has the chance to be really, really special next year with the depth that we have, and you get guys like Cooper Alexander that are coming back who would have played for us as a freshman if he didn't get hurt. And then you got like walk-ons like Trip Walsh that are going to come here, and he played meaningful snaps for us last year in critical situations and gets better every day. And all those guys are probably as big and fast as they have been. And the benefit or the silver lining in those guys being hurt is they were able to spend a lot of time with Coach Kegi, who I think is really good. So those guys are pros. We had the highest GPA on the team again. No big deal there. So those guys do everything the right way, and they're a blast to be around. They're a lot of fun, and I can't say enough about how much I love those guys.
They get the intelligence from you?
They do not. They're a lot smarter than I am. Their GPAs are a lot better, but doesn't mean I don't hold them to a high standard and make sure they're doing what they need to do. But it's certainly not because of me.
Just curious, what is Jake Landry like? Have you gotten to interact with him a lot?
Yeah, he's a good guy. You could tell that he's coached a lot of football and in meaningful games. Like he won a national championship there, and he coached with Noah Pauly, our receiver coach, back at the Duluth, Minnesota, University of Minnesota Duluth, and they won a lot of football games there. He's been, to Temple. He's coached for a lot of different environments, for a lot of different coaches and players and atmospheres, and had a lot of success. And you can tell that he's really experienced with football, and you go out there and you watch what he was doing for Indy Day 1 with those guys. He's a guy that I feel like could go and coach a lot of positions and is very experienced coaching running backs, but the wealth of knowledge that he has in football is going to help us and push our offense in the right direction.
What's the plan from you for the wide receivers this spring, and what would you like to see out of them or see them accomplish?
Yeah, I'd like to see those guys. Obviously, there needs to be some growth and, a maturation process that those guys need to have, but I want to see those guys compete. Like the best thing that Jaden and Jalen had, obviously they're really talented, but those guys were dogs. Like they were nose down. Didn't matter what it was, winter workouts or football, like they were going to go and try to rip your face off and, eat your soul. And there'll be some growing pains with those guys learning a new offense. I understand that, but I want to see those guys go and, play as hard as they can and elevate our team with attitude and effort and push the culture of our offense. And I trust Coach Pauly and Coach Steeples to get those guys ready in terms of knowing what to do in their fundamentals. But I think just from the growth of those guys continuing to raise the bar and understand like the standard in that room is really high, the standard of the offense is really high, and there's a responsibility that comes with that. And we're going to play that we want to play, and we want to push the ball down the field with those guys. So they got to be able to show in practice they can catch those 50-50 balls and make contested catches versus our defense. And so far, it looks like they've done their part to train, and they've gained, we went through the DEXA stuff today, 10 pounds of muscle between, the new guys that we have and the, Eskeltons that were freshmen and the Doms that were freshmen have done a good job. So those guys know what the standard is there. They saw what elite talent looks like and elite preparation looks like and what it takes to be great in this conference. So I'm not expecting a big fall off from those guys at all.
Obviously have returners, but between how dominant those two guys were in the passing game, plus the two transfers, is Rocco and that group kind of starting at scratch from how to put it all together, by next fall?
Yeah, and Rocco, and I've been vocal about this, like he is like another offensive coach on our staff. Like he's the guy on Saturdays since we got back. The coaches aren't there. He's there running practice and going through routes and going through all of our man beaters, zone beaters, our concepts, teaching it to those guys, and just getting the timing down, getting the feel for those guys and where they're at, and showing those guys just like what an elite work ethic looks like. And this is the standard that we have on offense with those guys. So having Rocco and the experience that he has and just the work ethic and the competitor that he is, it rubs off on everybody. It makes us better as coaches and makes the players better. So having a guy like that at the top to trickle down through your offense, especially with new people, it's priceless.
What is, I don't know if patience is the right word, but what's his part of that process when he's used to throwing to NFL wide receivers, and maybe he will be again this year?
Yeah. He is very good at holding our guys accountable, and I don't think he gives a lot of leeway or cares that they're new people. Like, we need you to come in and push the needle, and if it's not how it's supposed to be, like, are we selfless enough to be able to take the criticism from each other as, coaches to coaches and coaches to players and players to players so that we can grow and be better? And there's no egos on the offense, and there won't be from the coaches to the players, and you got to be able to take coaching even from your own teammates. So obviously there is patience that comes with it, but the standard is the standard, and it's not going to get lowered because there's new people or freshmen. Like, if your name gets called, it doesn't matter who you are, walk on, freshman. We had to play a lot of people last year, but we're going to do what we do to go help score points and win football games. And there's not a lot of leeway just because you're new. The expectation is when you're out there on the field, like, you know what you're supposed to do, and you execute at an elite level.
You guys lose Hufford, you lose Travis. Give me a couple of guys that you think might compete for those spots this spring, and maybe one or two of the Helton twins even sneak into that mix.
Yeah, they've both done a great job. Super talented young guys, and they love football. Like, those guys are around over in the meeting rooms all day, every day. It means a lot to them. They came from elite programs in high school, and they know what it takes to win football games. And Coach Clinton and Jackson Scott Brown have done a good job of elevating the standard of that room, and we can't be as good as we want to be on fourth down like we were last year if we don't have an elite center that can take care of nose guards. So those guys know, like, if you're going to be the center in this offense, there's a lot of responsibility that comes with that, and you got to be ready to eat nails. And both those Heltons, have experience playing center. Brendan Black's another guy that's played center for us so far, through the early parts of spring ball. That's played a lot here from an early age and moved around and understands, what being a nasty physical O-lineman here is all about. James Neal's a guy at left tackle that started here at left tackle 2 years ago, played tight end for us last year. We flexed him, we moved him, did everything we needed, like when those tight ends got hurt. And he's a guy that refuses to leave the indoor. Every time you walk in there, he's perfecting his craft somehow, some way, and really, really driven to be the best version of himself, and knows, like, what Tyler Miller's work ethic is. So, those guys are all guys that I expect to step up and not, like, fill the shoes of those guys, but, like, how can those guys be better than the people that they're replacing? Because, like I said, with the wideouts, like, the standard is the standard, and we're going to be who we want to be, but they have to be at their best if we want to be good.
You mentioned the Helton twins. Beyond, at other positions, some younger guys you think this spring will be pretty key for them to start maybe making their moves?
Yeah, I think for the first time that probably in a long time we have some really good depth at the offensive line, and they do center school on Wednesdays with everybody that snaps, and there's 8 guys in there with our offensive line coaches there at 7, and then they do tackle school on Thursdays with the tackles, like, just to get, those guys are out there doing extra reps. And it doesn't matter if it's Will Tompkins, who's a 17-year-old, was a senior in high school a month ago. He's in there doing everything he needs to do. He's living upstairs with our nutritionist, making sure that he's eating the right stuff. Like, they're doing such a good job. And we have guys that were freshmen, like Rutledge is a guy that jumped off the tape yesterday. He's from, Western Iowa. He's done a great job for us. Dontrell Holt's another guy that's done a really good job for us. Like, there's a lot of flexibility, and Coach Clan's constantly moving those guys around, to see who can play in what spots, but I think it helps those guys learn the entire offensive line, because you never know when you're going to be the guy that has to go out there and be the tight end in some 14 personnel heavy stuff, or on goal line. Jim Boniface has played a lot of football here too. He's a guy that's moved around, played some tight end stuff last year, has played center here, has played guard here. So the flexibility, I think, has allowed those guys to understand the whole picture.
What about other positions too, in addition to the O-line, young guys?
Yeah. I talked about Cooper Alexander. It's been really nice to have him back and be healthy. I think what he's going to bring to our offense will be a level of versatility that I think will help us be really successful from a receiver standpoint. I think Brett Eskildson is a guy that you saw play a lot as a true freshman that's great on special teams. He'll be a guy that we can move around a lot on offense. And, I mean, Chase Sewell is a guy that's done a good job turning heads in here. Xavier Townsend's a new guy that's done a really good job turning heads in here. That is another guy that won't leave the indoor. You know, quarterback Moberly's another guy that's killed it with the nutrition team upstairs. The quarterbacks don't ever leave the facility here either. The running back room has kind of spoken for itself. Like those guys, you know, it doesn't necessarily feel like they're juniors because they've played a lot of football here, but that might be the best position group on our football team. And how can we challenge those guys to help us be dynamic on offense? Can we get Abu and Carson Hansen on the field at the same time? You know, Dylan Lee's another guy that looks incredible out there that's going to push the needle in the running back room. River Peppers is another guy that's done a really good job being a mid-year guy that jumped off the tape yesterday just with what he's able to do, the speed he's able to play with. And he's like these mid-year freshmen don't look like mid-year freshmen to us. So Aiden Flora played in the bowl game against Miami, had some really good stuff. He's a walk-on freshman that played against Miami last year in bowl game, helped us win the game. So that running back room should be super dynamic. I've tried to put a lot of pressure and heat on those guys because for us to be our best on offense, and I keep saying this, but you know, the running back and the tight end room is where we have all of our experience coming back. So if we're going to be good on offense, like those guys are going to have great years for us, and they know that, and they're going to have to prepare like that every day.
Coach, there's been a few guys nationally have kind of floated, and you have a lot of opinions, so I wanted your thoughts on this, but kind of floated playing other schools in spring scrimmages. What were your thoughts on kind of seeing those quotes from Mike Gundy and Coach Sanders at Colorado?
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I'm a competitor. I like to play as much as I like to go against Coach Haycock for 15 days in a row. That's actually not super fun at all because he's so good at what he does, and the defensive coaches and the players are so talented. And it's fun to go out there. It doesn't matter if it's like Coach Vite at Cincinnati, who's a good friend. Like, it's fun to compete against people. Like, doesn't matter if it's Rocco and golf or the tight ends and our Bachelor Fantasy League. So I think it would be awesome to go play someone else in spring and be able to keep it really basic with your base stuff and not feel like you have to scheme so much. But it's a great time to get like your young guys reps, and you might not even have to play some of those older guys, but to be able to go scrimmage and, you know, get against some different looks and let your young guys go and get their face pounded in a little bit would be good for everybody, because losing and stepping out of your comfort zone, I think, is one of the best ways to grow. And after 15 practices, it could be hard to do that here at times. Coach Campbell does a good job of making it nuts, but I think that would be fun to do for sure.
Before the Pop-Tart Bowl, you mentioned how a loss or a win to end the season can affect the momentum going into the offseason. Just coming off of that win, just what have you noticed in terms of preparation or just how it's affected offseason so far?
Yeah, I think it was interesting for me to see, because this new recruiting schedule, we were gone all of January. So you didn't get this. We went from the bowl game and then came back and didn't get to be around really our guys until February. So the only time I would really get to see him is when I would just try to watch him on Saturdays up top. And I guess I was kind of blown away with the work ethic those guys were able to come back with. But like I told you guys before, like, we won 11 games last year, and I don't think any of us saw that as a fluke. Like, the expectation here is that we're going to find a way to elevate the standard and win 11 games again, win 12, 13 games again, whatever it takes. But the habits have to reflect the mission, and you can't win championships without championship habits. So there wasn't, as late as the season went for us, I think we were all still upset about how the Big 12 championship game went. Like, I picked up confetti off of the field, and I keep it in my office, and I look at it every day, as cool as the Pop-Tart Bowl was. And it was great to end with a win, and happy for, our seniors to send them off with a win. But I think there's a bad taste in everyone's mouth from just how we showed up and played in the Big 12 championship game, and we can't get to that level and get on that stage and do that again. So I try to remind those guys of that, and I don't have to a ton, because the seniors do a good job of leading those guys and holding those guys accountable. But it has created some momentum for us, but it's raised the standard of what Iowa State football looks like for those guys, and they better match the work ethic or you're going to get exposed here.